Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Mia Hanks is a survivor, advocate, and award-winning author of the memoir Bridemaid. After enduring 29 years of marriage to a covert narcissist, Mia found the strength to break free and reclaim her life. Through her powerful storytelling, she sheds light on narcissistic personality disorder, gaslighting, coercive control, and the complexities of high-conflict divorce. Mia is passionate about raising awareness of narcissistic abuse and empowering others to find their voices, heal from trauma, and rebuild their lives. Her journey is a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of speaking out to inspire and support others. Thank you so much, Mia, for being on my show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure. Mia, your memoir, Bridemaid, is a powerful story of resilience. What inspired you to go ahead and write your memoir, and what does the title symbolize?
So the title is kind of a play on words. It goes basically to the point that I was married very young, and with a narcissist. Of course, I didn't realize my husband was a narcissist at the time. I didn't even know what narcissism was, but just the whole idea that he was trying to mold me into what he wanted, really taking away my identity. And I was kind of, he was making me into the bride that he wanted. So that's where the title comes from. And as far as the reason for writing my memoir, when I got out of this marriage, I was trying to find everything out I could about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. I didn't know much about it, only that it completely fit what had happened to me. And everything I found seemed to be written by a therapist or a psychologist. And while it was great information, I was really seeking a firsthand account. I wanted to know from someone else's perspective what day-to-day life looked like inside this type of marriage and to be able to compare it to my own experience. But I couldn't find that out there. And so after I had been through some therapy and done some healing, I decided that maybe writing a memoir might be helpful to other people out there.
Definitely it is for sure. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of writing like a memoir slash self-help book. And so I know it can also be therapeutic too, writing out everything. It's like a kind of like a release. So I'm so happy that you've written your memoir and now it's out.
Yeah, it is a therapeutic process. I will have to say, I kind of felt like as I was putting these stories down on paper, I almost felt like I could let go of them.
Mm.
So it was kind of a therapeutic in a way that I didn't expect. But I thought it was a healthy experience at the end of the day. Yes.
Right. Now, for those unfamiliar, can you explain what narcissistic personality disorder is and how it actually manifests in covert narcissists?
Yeah, so we hear the word narcissist a lot. And a lot of the time that we hear this word, it's being misused. It's overused. And I think people really don't understand that narcissistic personality disorder is just that. It is a personality disorder. It doesn't just mean that someone is arrogant or pompous or, very overtly narcissistic. Um, there's a lot more to it than that. The DSM, I believe there are 9 criteria, and for a diagnosis, one needs to have 5 of those or more. But the criteria are things like narcissists, for example, they're not always overtly arrogant, right? You don't necessarily know you're dealing with one because they could be covert. And that was the case with my husband. Um, to the outside world, he was very humble, very kind, generous, empathetic, but it was all a show. And so that's what makes these people quite dangerous because a lot of times you don't know that's what you're dealing with. Behind closed doors, my husband was abusive. He was manipulative. He was conniving, controlling. But the outside world doesn't see that. So it creates a very complex situation for the victim because it's hard to get anyone on the outside to believe you. But narcissism is, this is a personality disorder. It doesn't go away. And honestly, in most cases, it never gets better.
Mm. I've probably been in some of those relationships. Oh,
Yeah,
scary.
I think it's a lot more prevalent than what we realize. And I think a lot of victims out there are in these relationships, and because of the amount of gaslighting and manipulation, they honestly don't believe that they are in an abusive situation. I know I didn't for a long time. I just thought I was the issue, and this is how it is. So I really, I'm hoping to spread awareness. Because no one needs to live like this. It's really a miserable life.
Yes. And after 29 years of marriage, what was the pivotal point that made you realize that you needed to break free?
Really, it was my physical health.
Uh,
Living under all that stress, I was crumbling. I was dealing with chronic pain, headaches, stomach aches. I felt sick all the time. And each year it just got a little worse and a little worse. Narcissists are known to get worse with age, not better. And so, yeah, my physical health was just not, things just weren't sustainable under that level of pressure and stress. And I really had to kind of do some research and figure out what is going on here because I reached a point where I thought, I just don't think normal, quote unquote, normal people live like this. And yeah, I started doing some research and learned about narcissism. And wow, that was an eye opener.
yeah.
Realizing that that's what I had been living with and just didn't know it. And I always kind of thought of him as a narcissist. But I had no idea there was an actual disorder. And he, out of those 9 criteria, I mean, he was a solid 8. So definitely that's what I was dealing with.
Yeah. And what are some of the common red flags of narcissism that people might miss in the early stages of a relationship?
I think the red flags are there, but they are easy to miss because they seem like small things that are just maybe personality quirks. For example, a lack of empathy. But that
Mm.
doesn't have to be that noticeable. It can just show up in really small ways. But I noticed very early on that my husband had little to no empathy. He just didn't genuinely care about people, primarily me. And so little things like that. Other things would be pay attention to how this person makes you feel about yourself. I always felt not good enough. I always felt like there was something wrong with me. And you shouldn't feel that way in a relationship. You should feel confident and you should feel secure. And I never felt any of those things. So just very little things that seem little, but they grow into bigger things. And so, pay attention to just those little things about how you feel in certain situations, because your intuition is trying to tell you something.
Yes, and you mentioned the word gaslighting. Going back a little bit, it is a term many people hear but may not fully understand. Can you go ahead and explain what it is and how it actually impacts reality, our reality, I should say, especially in marriage?
Yeah, again, another term that's overused. And most of the time, when you hear somebody talk about gaslighting, they're not even using the term correctly. I think a lot of people don't really understand what it is. It's not a synonym for lying. Gaslighting is a complex thing. So basically, it's a way that the narcissist uses to change the narrative. Um, for example, if I would say to my husband, I really didn't like the way you spoke to me, or that something, you did made me feel really terrible. I didn't like that. His response, instead of to apologize and own up to it, would be, well, you're remembering that wrong. I didn't say it like that. I didn't mean it like that. And then he would say something to the effect of, well, there's something wrong with you because, a normal person wouldn't have that reaction to this. You're too sensitive. And so what they do then is they make you convinced that there's something wrong with you,
Mm.
that you're going crazy, that in fact, and then I would question myself and say, well, maybe I am remembering that wrong, or maybe my reaction wasn't normal. And you start to doubt yourself. So yeah, it's a very complex thing, and it is a way that narcissists gain and keep control over you.
Wow. Now, how can someone actually begin to rebuild their confidence and sense of reality after experiencing that gaslighting?
I think it's really hard. I mean, I think especially so many victims of narcissists spend years in these relationships, just because it's so hard to identify. It's not unusual for victims to spend decades. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, at the end of 29 years, I had little to no confidence. I found that I was just second guessing myself all the time. I did not trust my own instincts. Um, so rebuilding definitely is it's a process. I think it's a slow process. And therapy, I think is the first step to trying to regain your life. I mean, you really have to rebuild your life from the ground up. And it's slow. It's slow, and you have to be patient with yourself.
And just only imagine. Now, I was divorced in, let me see, well, separated in 2014 and then finalized in 2018. But my situation was different and had to deal with a lot of alcoholism. And I wanted to
Yeah.
get better. He didn't want to get better, sort of thing. But I know the challenges of divorce. But divorcing a narcissist can definitely add lots of layers of complexity. What unique challenge did you face during your divorce?
It's a scary process because you're not dealing with a neurotypical person.
Mhm.
So there's the unknown of how are they going to react. Narcissists don't take no for an answer. It's just not in their playbook. And so definitely there's a lot of fear leaving and figuring out how to do this safely. Um, they get angry, and you do have to take some precaution there. The other thing that I was not anticipating, um, that I think probably nearly all narcissists will do when they get discarded, when their spouse leaves them, their girlfriend leaves them, however that may be, is this whole concept of a smear campaign.
Mm.
And I don't know why I thought I would be immune to that. Um, I think I just didn't want to think that he could be that vindictive. And so I really fooled myself. But definitely as soon as my now ex-husband realized I was not coming back, his number one goal was to get to every mutual friend that we had and tell all kinds of lies about why I had left him. And you lose a lot of friends in the process, and it's hurtful. But at the same time, if they're going to believe him and side with him, they weren't my friends to begin with, so it's all okay. But that was something I was not prepared for. The other thing was the financial abuse. I did not realize how vindictive he would be with finances, hiding money, draining bank accounts, trying to make it very hard for me to survive. And again, this is something that narcissists tend to do. It's a common behavior during a divorce.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about the whole financial aspect of it too. That definitely is challenging. Did you find yourself looking at the bank account and the account, you're like, where did the money go?
Yeah, he had always had 100% control over the finances. I let him. He was good at it. And so, and I didn't ever anticipate getting a divorce. So, I was pretty naive when it came to our finances. And, um, narcissists will, they'll do whatever they have to do to protect themselves. And in my case, it involved him, moving money around, hiding money. And it really, yeah, it was a problem. One that I did not anticipate. I like to tell people, if you are contemplating leaving a narcissist, take some steps, be proactive, set aside money for yourself because you'll need it. And do little things that you can do when you go to the grocery store, and you buy your groceries, request cash back. Things like that can't be tracked very easily, that allows you to set up some funds for yourself so that you can get out. Financial abuse keeps a lot of women, especially, trapped in these marriages.
Yes. Now, what strategies or resources helped you stay grounded and advocate for yourself during the divorce process?
I think for me, I was very lucky in that I have a very supportive family. I know that not everybody has that, so I was extremely fortunate to have people. I had somewhere to go.
Mhm.
I had people to talk to. I have friends, and that was huge. The other big thing was therapy. I was in therapy for about a year, and I found that to be while it's not a cure-all. I mean, people think they go to therapy and they are cured of, this complexity of psychological damage. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a great place to start and kind of set you on the right path to healing.
Yeah, so you did mention therapy, but any other steps you took towards healing after leaving your marriage?
Probably just, I think that the best thing, the most helpful thing I did was just having people to talk to.
Hmm.
I think that when you come to the realization that you've been in this abusive relationship, I just never thought of myself as an abuse victim. It seems like a big word. But when I finally had to kind of open up, and it's kind of embarrassing, really, to admit that, yeah, I lived this way for this long. But when I was able to kind of open up and start talking, that really was probably the most therapeutic thing that I did, just talking about everything that had happened. Um, there's something about the way you process this when you're able to talk to somebody. So that's huge. And then writing my memoir, I didn't realize would be so therapeutic, but really it was.
Yeah, how was the writing process for you? I mean, like I said, I'm in the process of writing mine, but I feel like it's taking forever. I don't know. Any tips you can go ahead and give me when it comes to writing?
I found the same thing. I would write for a while and then I would stop,
Mhm.
for maybe weeks, because I just kind of felt overwhelmed and I kind of felt stuck, and I would set the project down and say, I don't know if I'm going to finish this. And then I would get a little wave of confidence and pick it back up and work on it again. So yeah, I mean, slow process, but I think realize that you're sort of it's a form of therapy, and so it's going to be slow, and then you're going to have big strides, and then it'll slow down again. But it is very therapeutic to just like just like talking with a friend, putting those stories on paper, and putting it on paper, you kind of feel like you can let go of it, because you've recorded it now. And I just didn't realize how therapeutic and helpful that would be, but it really was a very good experience in the end.
Yes. Now, have you gotten any feedback from any readers? What are they saying about your memoir?
I've gotten really good feedback. I have a couple of therapists that actually have a copy of the book in their office, and they give it to clients to read. And I've gotten really good feedback that their clients have, felt very much, I guess, not alone, reading that and realizing, hey, other people go through this too. So the feedback has been really good. And I'm, just really hoping that the right people get their hands on it, that need to hear this story and that can benefit from the information.
Absolutely. And also, how can friends and family members support someone who is either in or recovering from just a toxic relationship?
I think it's hard, I know my parents were the only ones that actually saw what was going on in my marriage. And, for years they wanted me out, but it's really hard. You can't just go up to someone and say, you need to leave your spouse. I mean, you just can't do that. And so, my advice to family members who are watching this play out, you just have to be patient, and you can offer advice, but I mean, really it's the victim is the one that has to ultimately decide to make that break. And it's got to be maddening, to sit back and watch this and think, oh, you need to be out of there. This is so bad for you. But yeah, you just have to be patient and just be a pillar of support, um, be the person that they can come and talk to when they decide that they need to talk.
Yes, I was fortunate to have family members that were there for me when I was in my recovery of not only just divorce, but anything that had happened to me in the past that was a crisis. They were
Yeah.
always there. And I'm so grateful that they love me so much. And that's so nice to hear that your family was also supporting you during the time of your separation and, of course, your divorce. Yeah.
Yeah, that support system is really important. And not everybody has that. So, that's another thing I like to tell people who are contemplating leaving a narcissist. You really need to put a support system in place, you
Mhm.
know, um, whether and the other thing, the misconception there is people think you need a whole bunch of people for a support system, and you really don't. I mean, if you just have one or two people, that can be a huge difference.
Oh, yes. It's just like having friends, For me, I have many acquaintances, but I have like five solid friends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that was kind of the case with me as well. I didn't have a lot of friends. And then, the whole smear campaign, and I basically all of our mutual friends, I basically lost all of them. So, I mean, it all goes back to you don't need, a whole army of people. If you can just have one or two people that can support you, it really makes all the difference in the world.
Yes. Now, what are some misconceptions about narcissism and narcissistic abuse that you hope to dispel through your memoir or even your advocacy?
I think for just abuse in general, I think the biggest misconception is uh, that the victim presents as a victim, you know, um, and and people don't realize that a lot of times victims, especially victims probably of narcissistic abuse, um, they do kind of put on this air that they want people to think everything's okay, you
Mhm.
know, um, because as narcissistic abuse victims, we're conditioned to basically protect the abuser. Our whole life has to revolve around this narcissist. Everything is about them, everything is for them. It's all about how they're feeling and how they look to the outside world. And so, I was guilty of basically living this lie and protecting him. I wanted him to look good to everybody. I wanted everybody to think he was a great husband and a great father. So I think a misconception is, you think that this victim is walking around looking like a victim. In a lot of cases, you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors.
Yes. Oh, I want to read your memoir. It's really inspiring, sounds like. Are you actually working on any new projects or initiatives related to healing?
Right now, I don't have anything. I'm just mainly promoting my book. I'm doing a lot of podcasts. I did start a website, miajhanks.com, and I started a blog. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. And I'm not sure what's next. I just kind of take it one day at a time and just, I'm living in this newfound freedom. And I've never had this kind of freedom before. So it's overwhelming and it's exciting. And yeah, I don't know what's next, but I'm enjoying it.
Yes, the key word is a freedom. You're
Yes.
free. You're free.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
wow. What final words of encouragement would you like to share with anyone who may be feeling trapped in a toxic relationship or struggling to heal?
For those people that are in these relationships, I think, my word of encouragement would be if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you need to leave. I mean, it's just the plain truth. And of course, you don't want to tell somebody to leave their spouse, but if you're in an abusive situation like this, staying, there's no benefit to staying. There just is not. It's not going to get better. And you need to leave while you can. and reclaim your life, start your life over again. It seems daunting. I know that you feel like you're stuck. I know that's how I felt, but it is possible to get out. There are resources out there. There are people out there that will help. And yeah, just while you can, get out and start a new life for yourself. It's much better than living under abuse.
Yes, amen to that for sure. Now, where can our listeners go ahead and purchase your book? Either find you on social media.
Yeah, my main social media account is through TikTok, and the handle is at NPD. That stands for Narcissistic Personality Disorder, NPD and me. And then my website, miajhanks.com. There's a link there to Amazon where you can purchase my book, and it's available in ebook format as well as paperback.
Awesome. And then everything will be in the show notes. But did I miss anything? I'm trying to think.
I don't
Is
think
there anything
so.
else you wanted to? I was like going to each of the topics. I'm like, okay, I hit that point, that point, that point. But I feel like I'm missing something, but maybe not. Anything
Yeah,
else you would
I
like to bring up?
Let me think. Yeah, I think just another topic that just isn't really talked about much is the financial abuse. And I do address some of that in my book. And yeah, I just hope that people, it's so easy to feel stuck, you know, it's so easy to feel like there's no way out, especially when you're with somebody who controls all the finances. You know, how in the world do I break free and get out of here? But you know, the message I like to leave with people is you're not stuck. You really aren't. There's always a way out. There are always options.
There's always options. I don't know if I didn't mention this to you, but I was in an abusive relationship and he may have been just a narcissist, but guess how old I was? I was 15, he was 15. We were both in high
Wow.
school. Very manipulative. Oh my goodness, wouldn't let me go to class, would throw me over his shoulder. It got to a
Wow.
point I had bruises on my arms because he would physically grab me. No, we need to talk right now. And he would
Yep.
pretend getting sick when I would break off everything and say, no, I cannot be with you. And he would like try to throw up, like he was getting ill. And
Yes.
it was just, oh, he made me feel good at certain points and then made me feel horrible at certain
Yeah, yeah.
points.
They love to be the victim, you know, and again, misconception. People think they just walk around arrogant all the time. Not always the case. You know, they love to gain sympathy. They want you to feel sorry for them. And yeah, faking being sick to get attention, that's a huge thing that they'll do, especially in a breakup or, you know, when they're needing attention, they will fake being sick. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy, but it's really a typical behavior.
Yeah, and I remember like I couldn't wear certain clothes. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't being provocative or anything, I was only 15, but like anything that was tighter fitting, I couldn't wear that. Like it was so crazy that my mom was like, "Oh, no, enough is enough." We had to get a restraining order on him, and it
Yeah.
totally changed my whole high school experience because he was the jock. He was the high school
Yeah.
jock. And, everyone thought, like you were talking about, charming, he's the right, I'm in the wrong, shame on me.
Yes.
Like I would be walking around the high school hallway and people would be like, giving me a thumbs down or going boo, all of his high school or football players, teammates. And I felt so ugly and so ashamed. And I was like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. But luckily,
Right.
I lost a lot of those friendships that we had mutual friends, like you even mentioned too,
Hmm.
that, and we just had to filter them out. It was probably a blessing in disguise. And
I'm
then
sure. I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I eventually met a different guy who was completely opposite. This was in my junior year of high school. Now, we went to the same junior high as well, but we were always friends. But then we started dating in my junior year of high school. But unfortunately, he introduced me to the rave culture. And then that's where I started dabbling with ecstasy and other narcotics. And then eventually
Yes.
led me then to the drinking path because I was in the party mode. And it's like, oh, I had to say he was a nice guy. I'm not gonna get me wrong, he was a nice guy, but he wasn't a good example, setting a good
Right.
example for me at all.
Yeah,
But we
that's
had
rough though. But
right?
yeah, the just that control, you know, and you mentioned being charming. They're
Yeah.
always so charming. And that's why who's going to believe you when you go out and say, well, they're actually manipulative, controlling, abusive. Everybody's going to say, no, they're so charming and nice and sweet. And, it's your word against theirs. And it's you have no physical, nothing physically on your body that you can prove, hey, I've got these bruises, I've got whatever, because oftentimes narcissistic abuse isn't physical. So there's just, it's you just got to rely on people to believe you, and sometimes it's hard to get that support.
It is hard. And then, well, luckily, everything, oh, I'm remarried now. Luckily,
Oh,
ever since
good,
I became
good.
sober, my life completely changed, and I'm just so grateful that I have more awareness of who to invite in my life. And now I
Yes.
am blessed to have a wonderful husband. We got married in 2020, right before COVID hit, so we didn't have to cancel our wedding plans
Oh,
or anything.
nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect, though. Perfect
Yes.
timing.
But Mia, the
Wow.
funny thing is that his ex-wife, because we were both married before, is a narcissist, and that she's considered a grandiose narcissist. And we
Okay.
have a very difficult time communicating with her because she's the only one that's right, and everybody else is wrong, and she doesn't.
Yes.
She's not logical. She'd rather have her own child, because I have a stepson, suffer. So it'll benefit her. And
Yes.
like for example, his schooling. I don't know what, I mean, she tries to take him away from my husband. I mean, they have, split custody, 50-50. And she decides to go to Manteca. I don't know. I'm in California. So Manteca from San Jose is about a good an hour away.
Hmm.
And she moved and bought a house there. Excuse me, you're not supposed to just take the child, and he's not going to start his
Right.
middle school over there. And then luckily I feel bad for my stepson because I think she conditions him and tries to say, oh, don't talk about this topic, don't talk about that. But I had mentioned him. I said, oh, his name is Isaac, my stepson. And I was like, aren't you so excited? You're going to be starting middle school soon with your classmates. So I think that's why we moved to Manteca. I don't think I'm going to be going to school over here. And we're like, whoa. I told my
Wow.
husband immediately, and he's like, oh no. So he had to file court papers. And I feel like he's filing court papers like every other month. And it's
Yeah, and I hear that family court with a narcissist is not a fun experience.
oh, it's not.
Especially like a grandiose that, just so outwardly everything's about them, and they will kind of use the kid against,
Yeah.
to either gain sympathy or who knows what. That's really sad to hear that.
Yeah, it's really rough, and I we just pray for her, and just like, you know what, we just pray for her. But I think yeah, it gets worse through age.
It
They've been dealing with
does.
this for over 10 years, and it's nothing's
Yeah.
changed. Her behavior's not changed. It probably has gotten worse. But yeah, so I'm understanding more and more about the narcissistic behavior.
Yeah,
I just made up my own word.
it's one of those things where if you haven't experienced it, it's hard to believe. People don't want to believe that there are actually people like that out there. But yeah, if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for being on my show today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I just know our listeners going to be inspired by your memoir, and I hope they buy it. I hope they buy it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure.